All right. Hello, everyone. I guess we are live. This is Christian from NetGuru. Thanks for being here with us today, whatever time you're in. So, today we will talk about UX or UI patterns in AI driven systems. This is actually our last webinar from this um, artificial intelligence series. So basically, we are finishing after 5 previous episodes. So today will be about user experience or user interface and how to combine all of those in, let's say, modern AI driven systems. So we are finishing with the series. Thanks for being here with us all the time. If you somehow missed the previous episodes, you will find those in the comments below the video. So make sure you will check the previous episodes as well. Um, Although this is the, let's say, last episode, we are not finishing completely. We are starting with the next events, which will be, we will call it AI for Devs, and we are starting for that in 12th of June. So this is like around 2 weeks from now. So make sure you will check this out as well. You will find link in the comments below the video as well. So basically, the new series will be mostly around very practical approaches, very practical solutions in terms of implementing AI-driven systems. So there will be a lot of coding. I guess if you are more into implementation, this might be super interesting for you. Right. So jumping into our topic today. So basically, today we will discuss the user interface ideas. And let's say I will present 10 modern problems that we need to solve with our interfaces. And this will be specifically problems for the AI-driven systems and how to solve it. So what are the best, let's say, market standards or solution standards to solve those issues. So let me share the screen because today we will have completely Miro session. So yeah, let me share my screen right now. All right, cool. So we are on my Miro. Um, so before I will jump into the solutions and problems space, let's do a quick recap on where we are. So usually when we are talking currently, like from the implementation perspective about AI-driven product categories, these are kind of things that are, let's say, most popular. Of course, we all know that at the end of the day, probably AI will be present in all product categories, the same as we have today with the mobile application, right? But today, most likely, these are the categories where you can find the somehow AI-driven products. So usually these are advertising, chatbots, e-commerce. We will talk about it today. Emails, applications, writing and editing, text editing, health and wellness, maps and navigation, entertainment, streaming services, productivity, search engines, right? What Google is doing lately, social networking, voice assistants. These are kind of most common AI product categories where you can adopt those solutions that we will present today. So if by any chance you are UI/UX designer in those categories, you may see some, let's say, innovation in the categories very soon. So hopefully this will be very practical for you. And what are the AI types that are usually combined into those product categories? So usually these are searches, text generation, classification problems, facial recognition, filtering and ranking, of course, Gen AI, right? Route planning, navigation system, recommender systems, data predictions, voice recognition, or image recognition. These are kind of AI types that are very common in terms of solving UX UI problems. Of course, there are like bunch of other use cases, right? Hundreds of them. But these are kind of most popular commercial ones that are currently visible in terms of solving UX UI problems. So for the session today, for next around 25-30 minutes, I've created like 10 different problems, and I wanted to present you how to solve those problems with modern UX or UI patterns and with very practical examples. So, right, let's jump into the first problem that you may notice. So the first one is the user needs to understand what system can do, right? So how to basically help user to understand what the very specific system can do. Usually AI systems might be quite complex. And what are the patterns to help them understand? So these are kind of three most popular approaches. So the first one, this is from Semantic Scholar, which in this case is AI-powered research tool for scientific literature. So one of the tools that they are using is called introductory blurb, which is this blurry gray kind of things that give you a hint what you can do with this specific system, right? So you can ask about some specific question. The other approach is demonstrating possible system inputs. So the big problem from the user interface or challenge with the user interface within the AI-driven system, and very specifically for the generative AI systems, is that you may have like infinite numbers of inputs, right? In very kind of classical application, usually you have like multiple inputs, some outputs, right? In here, you can have like infinite amounts of inputs. You can ask anything, right? Which is totally kind of difficult for the user. So what systems are doing, and this is like Google Maps pattern, they are demonstrating what are the potential inputs, right? And this is even what ChatGPT is doing, right? So they are also explaining, they are giving you some hints, and it would be ideal if those hints would be also some kind of, could be profiled, or those would be some kind of context oriented, but it gives you like this single shot tip on how you can use this system. What is the type of input you can implement in this system, right? So this is solving the first problem, which is how to help user understand what is the input in the system, right? So this is the first pattern. The second pattern is how to set up the realistic expectation about how well the system can perform and what it can do, right? So how to manage the user expectations. And again, very significant challenge with today's systems, and again, specifically around the Gen AI, but not only, is that also with the recommender systems, is that you might have different quality of the output, right? So make sure that system kind of is transparent to your user and telling the user that, hey, this is still, let's say, experimentation technology, or system may perform slower because of something, because of, let's say, increased traffic, right? So this is how to provide this transparent communication in the system, right? So communicate that the system is probabilistic and may make mistake through intentional use of uncertain in language, like people you may know, right? This is what LinkedIn is doing. People you may have worked close with. So this is on language level, right? User interface communication precision, right? Make clear how well the system can do what it can do. As your co-pilot, I'm here to assist you, but I do make mistakes. So sources are provided for your review when possible, right? So this is to communicate transparently to your user, right? This is what Copilot is doing. Very often you may have some low performance, let's say, time periods. And so in this case, This is also what we have in the Microsoft ecosystem. AI generated content may be incorrect, right? Or be may performs lower because of increased traffic. So these kind of transparent information. This is also what ChatGPT is doing in their user interface, in the OpenAI interface, right? The third problem is managing multiple output options. So we had this issue with managing multiple input options where you can give the user like tips and tricks how to use the system for the first time, or just what you can do with the system. But basically in AI systems, and even more often with generative AI systems, you may have issue with multiple output options, right? So it can give you some options. So maybe there is the one that you can prefer. Of course, if you are a UX researcher, you can also imagine that this is a perfect scenario for your A/B testing, right? But in case of AI systems, this is, for instance, what OpenAI is doing in the ChatGPT interface. So interesting thing, this is not happening all the time. This is kind of random generated, but let's say from time to time, ChatGPT gives you two responses options so that you can choose the one that you're preferring, right? Response one, response two, right? And choose the one that is preferable for you. And the same with GitHub Copilot or Copilot solutions, right? This is the example where you may have, in terms of using Codex model, you may have multiple options, right? 10 solutions for the draw a circle instruction, and then you may have multiple options to choose the one for, right? So this is literally giving even more than two, giving the user 10 so that they can choose the preferable one. So this is literally disambiguating before acting, right? And switching the classification decisions. So I'm classifying this decision as the better one, so I'm using the better one. So this is very kind of new because you are giving the user ability to choose the preferable output. Of course, continuing as AI systems will grow bigger, will be more advanced, probably you may not need to have multiple output options. However, again, in generative AI, it may be a good pattern. The problem 4 is how to provide more context to the visible interface, how to engage users, right? This is quite simple and maybe even some explaining. So very often, and this is like in the Copilot, you can give the user contextually relevant information, right? So if there are yesterday's notes in OneNote, specifically here, then you may contextualize around this information and give the user ability to choose next link or next pattern, right? And this is even like in the recommender systems, you know it from the e-commerce very well, right? Customers also considered, right? So this is contextualized information for this specific amount or this specific period of time. So people that also build this product, like, I don't know, probably some Xbox console, they've also considered or they've also bought this product, right? So this is contextualized information and relevant in very specific time period. The other very open discussion is how to ensure social norms and how to be polite in the interface. Should you be polite? And kind of those norms, ethical patterns are also like in few next slides. So first thing is that the good pattern is basically to be polite. This is the trend that we're seeing. Like, I'm sorry, I couldn't find mom in your contacts. Who did you want to call, right? Or the other one, like being consistent, right? Or select individually, right? Is a non-profit organization. So these kind of polite information that you can compound, you can find as a text. um, Consider using consistent spelling, right? This is exactly this element. So consider using this element, or you may use. So this is probably more on the long language level, politeness, right? And the next question is, by that, how to mitigate social bias in the AI system, right? And usually this is avoid any kind of stereotyping. So very like three very good example from the tech, like in the Apple Siri, the first thing they did some time ago was adding additional voices so that assistant will not longer will be associated with the woman's voice, right? So the default voice might not be the female one, right? So that no one will let's say associate the woman's voice with the assistants. The third one is the second one is basically giving the um, feminine and masculine options as a translation, right? Because, for instance, in Spanish or in other languages, you might have different versions. So giving the user ability to choose the correct one, right? And the third one is gender neutral pictures, right? So this is also from the analytics. Like you can find literally here, this icon is gender neutral, right? So basically, this is not biased anyhow. And I believe that when AI system will have more and more user, it will be even more important. So basically, suggesting goal forms, make it quite gender universal, make it quite gender neutral. The problem number 7 is, and like again, very open topic, specifically around generative AI, is around explainability. So the good pattern is, it means that how to provide, how to explain why system did some specific action, right? So usually for the system will mean that provide the local explanations. So in terms of Excel Copilot, right, you may find the button explain, right? How did you know that, right? And this is also even what Netflix is doing in the recommendations, like mapping user behaviors to system outputs, right? Because you did something, because you watched something, right? You probably like this one. So exactly like on the language level, explaining to users why system did that, why system recommended that, right? So this is problem number 7, explainability, and I would say one of the most important trend in the, let's say, UX patterns. The other thing is also how to how not to throw the user at the deep end. So how not to end up with too much complexity at the very like start. So first of all, if you have like advanced recommendation system, the good thing is to create some kind of wizard, right? Like um, select your interest, add interest to start with ones we've suggested below, so that user will avoid, as we call it, a cold start, right? So they will not have like randomly generated interface with tons of content, but rather the already from the day one, the content that will be adjusted to their needs, right? Avoiding those cold starts. And system can learn during the time, but it will from the day one will be more personalized from the user needs. And this is even like having non-disruptive updates, right? So it basically creates some adding additional song to the playlist, but it's doing that in a very gentle and non-disruptive way, right? So system is kind of learning on the go. So the ninth one is how to get a granular feedback in the interface. Again, this might be more relevant for you specifically around user experience research. This is what Instagram is doing. So the problem that we are trying to solve, and this is also very applicable to generative AI systems, is why we did that and what do you think about it. But don't give us only yes and no feedback, but try to make it more granular, more contextualized, right? This is about some cat advertisement. So there is literally the question where probably the user choose that he or she don't want to see this advertisement anymore. So literally interface can ask, so why don't you want to see this ad? It's not relevant, it's too often, it's inappropriate, right? So it's giving this kind of granular feedback possibility for further analysis, right? And the 10th one, which is the last one, so how to efficiency change the system, the global system behavior. This is also very interesting trend and pattern, is to provide global control and suggestions. So specifically for the Gen AI systems, where the system can behave in multiple ways. And if we want to avoid that this way or this behavior will be randomly generated, it's very good to define some kind of, usually what we will call it, system instruction or general instruction, right? Where the system will at least behave every time at the same level, right? So this is what ChatGPT is doing. There are those custom instructions, system instruction, where you can define, let's say, system instruction for the entire conversation, all the conversations in the chat, right? Or some generic, let's say, suggestion for the entire organization that you are in, right? Like Mark 8 was highlighted because it was automatically identified as a topic of interest to your organization. Should it be highlighted? Yes and no, right? So yeah, these are basically 10 most powerful patterns. So let's wrap it up from the first to another. Um, so basically, make sure that you will help the user to understand what system can do, because it may have like a million of inputs. So at least give him a, let's say, first ideas what system can do. The second one, manage the user expectations, right? So make sure that in, let's say, lower performance situation or insecure Gen AI systems, user will be transparently informed about it. Switch classification decision, right? Make sure if in case of multiple outputs possibilities, give the user at least several outputs to be chosen. Show contextually relevant information. So it means that you may add additional context to currently presented information. Be polite in the communication. Avoid the bias, avoid the stereotyping. Suggest all forms. Provide gender neutral graphics, right? Provide local explanation, why system suggested that, what happened here, right? Avoid cold starts, right, with the new systems. Make sure you will at least try to pre-configure the system for the users. Ask very specific questions during the feedback process, right? It doesn't need to be black or white question. It can be much more granular, so that you will have more insightful product analytics. Last but not least, at least try to provide some global controls and suggestions. So yeah, these are like 10 biggest, I would say, patterns that are currently in use in the user interfaces, in the user experience paths. So I'm super happy. I'm super like interested in getting your feedback. Let me know if you will have any comments or any questions. I'm happy to answer those. I guess that at this moment we don't have any questions. So let's wait a minute. And yeah, let me stop sharing my screen. All right, cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here with us. I hope that it was somehow interesting for you. We will also provide you some sources to, let's say, to these presentations. There are already some very good patterns book, at least for instance, from Microsoft, where you can deep dive in those design patterns for or for AI user interfaces. And basically, this is also, I already see some comments. Okay, very inspired. No questions from now. Thanks you very much. So I will make sure that I will share the sources with you as well. These were like little bit condensed knowledge from what you can usually find in the patterns. I hope it wasn't too fast. So thank you very much. And yeah, save the date. So the next session we will have will be 20th June. You will find the links below the video, and it will be more like AI for devs, but it will not be extremely technical. So I guess that even for people UI or UX related, um, it will be also very interesting and insightful. So thank you very much. Thank you all for comments. I see you like it. So let me know if the UI patterns is something that you're interested in, because if yes, we can also schedule some, additional meetings, maybe with some guests. So yeah, hope you like it. Thank you very much all, and see you next time. Thanks a lot.